Welcome to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann, a leading expert in professional coaching, clinical hypnosis, and energy clearing. Lois is an award-winning author of Chronicles of Hope. She has decades of experience in advanced hypnosis techniques, has conducted highly effective success coaching programs that have helped clients discover ways to achieve success, empower themselves, their families, as well as holistic practitioners to expand their practices. Get ready to be empowered with your host, Lois Hermann.
And good morning. Welcome to Inspiring Hope. I'm your host, Lois Hermann, and I'm here to inspire you with positive messages and help to celebrate everyday people who are making a difference in our world. When we focus our thoughts and energies on what we love to do, we create powerful shifts that cause us to be more positive and peaceful. As we lift our energy, we empower everyone around us. If we each do what we can to make small shifts in awareness, from kindness to healthy habits and simple happiness, we create ripples of hope. Join us as catalysts for positive change for our families, our communities, and our world at large. I hope you're inspired by today's show. And today, welcome to spring. Are you enjoying the warmer days and the longer sunshine? It's been great, that extra daylight. One of the things that I realized when I moved up here to New England from down south in Tennessee, the daffodils bloom in mid-March. On my daughter's birthday, they always bloomed. Well, up here, it's the whole April showers bring May flowers. The daffodils are just now blooming here in New England, in New Hampshire, and it's such a treat. We just really enjoy watching everything come out of hibernation. When you drive down the street, and I would encourage everybody to get, we're in social distancing and isolation, but get in your car and take a drive. The daffodils are blooming, the forsythias in bloom up here in New Hampshire. All the fruit trees, the pears, the apples, and the cherries are all blooming. So it's absolutely beautiful. It's a wonderful, wonderful time of year where everything is waking up and coming to life. And I would also caution you that you have 6 days left to get out there and work in your gardens before May Day, whatever. The mayflies have some sort of this awareness, some sort of intuitive awareness that on May Day, May 1st, they start biting. They're out there now. They're buzzing around you, but they don't bite. But all of a sudden on May Day, they start biting. And it's, so if you want to work in your garden without working with the netting, get out there this week. And I've been out working in my gardens, which I love. That's one of my passions. And one of the things that bit me was a tick. So those of you who live in New England know that we have one of the highest rates of tick-borne illness in the world. So we are used to doing tick checks when we come in. So it was actually on Easter Sunday. I was out doing a little bit of work in the garden, grooming up some gardens and putting some mulch out, which is, tick haven. And I came in and sure enough, I had a little bitty, a very small, looked like a freckle, but I knew that I didn't have a freckle there. So I had my husband look at it with the magnifying glass and sure enough, it had legs. So once we finally got that little nymph out, and it was so small that you couldn't use your typical tick grabber. You had to use the tweezers, and of course we squeezed whatever juice it had in it right into me. My husband, with his famous wit, says, "How do you know it's lime? It could be lemon." Then all we'd have to do is, have a picture of margaritas. So anyway, I didn't have a bullseye, didn't have a rash, nothing, but I just, oh well. Some ticks don't have, there's no problem. Others, there's a large percentage of them are what are called like dirty needles. Every tick injects something into you. So I waited a few days. Actually, a week later, I was having a lot of kind of brain fog symptoms. Lyme affects different people in different ways. And for me, this I started getting very emotional, very sad, very just ruminating thoughts. And when I started, feeling sweaty and achy and had extreme lethargy, I thought, I've picked up some sort of an organism. So shout out to the New Hampshire Health and Wellness Center. I reached out to one of my friends there, went in. They are still seeing people. You have to be vetted before you can go in. But sure enough, they do magnet protocols, and she douses me to see if I have any organisms. And sure enough, I had 2 strains of Borrelia and Anaplasmosis. That's a hard word to say. She places magnets on my body. Voila. It's gone. So last year I had a tick, and I went in, and she doused, and she says, nope, you had nothing. You were fine. So if the moral of the story is, don't be afraid to go out there and dig in your gardens, to go for a walk, because you have this resource. I'm telling you, Google them, go to their website, New Hampshire Health and Wellness Center, and ask to have a tick check, because they will do, they can just do some dowsing and put some magnets on you, and you're good to go. I have to go back for one follow-up session, but oh my gosh, I feel so much better. It's like, oh, I'm back. So I was out yesterday. I don't call myself an arborist. Those are the people who work in the trees, but we live on a couple of acres of groomed gardens, and would it be a bushist? I don't know, but busherist. But I play with the bushes, the roadies, and I was working in the 9-bark, clearing out one of these huge big 9-barks yesterday and walling around underneath of it in Tickville. But this time I had sprayed bug juice on me before I started. So that's the moral of the story. You need to spray, and I tuck my pants into my socks and keep myself covered. This is tick season, guys. So be aware. However, take care of yourself. So one of the other things about getting out there, most of us have been sitting at our desks and, vegging a little bit over the winter. So now we're coming out of hibernation, and we're inspired to get out in the gardens and do some work and move that mulch and rake and groom and clean. And usually I end up at my chiropractor's office, or I definitely schedule an appointment for a massage, because I tend to overdo it and then I hurt myself. So I decided this time that it would be good to have somebody come on and talk to us about how we can keep ourselves healthy while we're coming out of hibernation. So I have this wonderful friend of mine, and you can get Brian on the phone if you want to, Art. Because this gentleman is a physical therapist and a fellow hypnotist, and he's an energy specialist as well. But he has some unique ways of helping us keep ourselves healthy and strong. And he's going to actually get ready, guys, because he's going to have us do some exercises to pay attention to how we're holding our body, what we're doing to keep our body healthy, so that as we're out there coming out of our winter hibernation and starting to work in our gardens or do some chores around the house on the outside, so that we are mindful of what we need to do to keep our bodies healthy and strong. So I am excited to have my good friend come on. And I'd love to introduce you to Brian Hill. Brian from Missouri. Brian, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks to you for having me here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, welcome to New England.
Somebody told me just the other day that I have the perfect face for radio, so I'm ready to rock and roll here. That's good.
All right, good for you. So tell us about this face. Tell us about you, a little bit about you. I said that you're a physical therapist, but you're a unique kind of physical therapist. Tell us about yourself, Brian.
Well, let's see. A little bit about me. I'm a Southern California product. I moved to Missouri in my early 30s, graduated from the University of Missouri in the mid-90s, and I've been doing physical therapy since I graduated. And I've been very, very fortunate in that since I've been a therapist and I was practicing, and I realized that I was just really I was missing something. People were getting better watching people exercise, but they just seemed to need a little bit more. So I looked around, and I was fortunate enough to find Michigan State University's College of Osteopathic Medicine, and I did a lot of their coursework that they had available and open to physical therapists. And so I learned a lot of the manual techniques that the osteopaths do, that the DOs do. And so that really seemed to help out quite a bit, and I was having success, and I started my own clinic and all that stuff. And I really kept thinking, there's still something more. I kept seeing the same patterns of people. They're always, they always tend to be in the same predicament. And I thought, is that because everybody seems to be more right-handed? I just didn't know. And then I discovered of a place in Lincoln, Nebraska, the Postural Restoration Institute. And I started doing some of their coursework. And even though they're teaching things that all based on anatomy that we already knew, they just looked at it a little bit differently. And so I incorporated a lot of their teachings and some of the things that I learned from there. In fact, a lot of the things that I've learned from there is incorporated every day. And so that's the approach I use, is to make sure that people are symmetrical.
So you've adopted, so your basic study was in physical therapy, and then you adopted osteopathic therapies, and then this Postural Institute. And I want people that are listening to know that this is, you're listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann, and my guest today is Brian Hill, who is a physical therapist, but has multi-layers to the type of work that he does. So, Brian, what specifically are you talking about with this Postural Restoration Institute? What did you learn that's different there?
Well, let's see. I should probably back up a little bit,
okay,
just to kind of give everybody kind of a framework here. And what they specifically teach is that we are all the same. Of course, now we're going to go at this from a physical therapy perspective, and there are some people that probably have some misfortune or some genetic something, and so they're not specifically the same. But for the most part, all of us human beings, we're all the same. And so they look at it from that perspective. Yes, we all have, we're composed of a spirit that drags around this physical body, and and all that stuff. But we're basically all the same. And what their approach is, what their science is, the way they approach it, is that even though we're all the same, we have a left side and a right side. And you have 2 arms, 2 legs, an arm and a leg on one side, and just, that kind of thing. We have a front and a back and a top and a bottom, and we're all the same. But the difference is even though we're all the same, we're all symmetrical, of course. And even though we're all symmetrical on the outside, we are not symmetrical on the inside.
That's true. I know from my years of diagnosis that there are certain organs that live on the right side and some organs that live on the left. So, yeah,
That's
inside
right.
It is a little bit different.
Right. Everybody knows our heart, is on the left side, since we started doing Pledge of Allegiance since when we were way down young in grade school. So everybody knows our heart's off on the left side. And because our heart's off on the left side, it takes up a large space of lung capacity on the left side. Mm-hmm. And so our left lung is smaller than our right lung. Okay, and because our left lung is smaller than our right lung, the diaphragm that we have on the left side is smaller than the diaphragm we have on the right side.
Okay.
The diaphragm on the right side has to be larger to control a larger right lung. The right lung is 3 full lobes. The left lung is 2 lobes. And so the diaphragm on the left side is a little bit smaller. Mm-hmm. And so our diaphragm is not balanced. Larger on the right, smaller on the left. And because of that, everything I see in the clinic can be contributed to some form of this involvement that affects everybody in some similar ways and a lot of people in different ways. And it's all based on the patterns and postures and positions that we get into because of that overworked right diaphragm.
Interesting. Overworked because the heart is taking up the left side. The right side, there's extra lung capacity there, and the diaphragm is larger, and also the liver's on that right side too, which is the largest solid organ in the body. So that takes up a lot of the space on the right side as well.
Yes, and interestingly enough, because our diaphragm is larger on the right side, it attaches a little bit differently than our diaphragm on the left side. And so because the diaphragm is larger, the attachments of your right diaphragm are also continuous with the muscles of your right hip, your psoas muscle.
Okay.
So the fibers of your right diaphragm go all the way down anatomically and connect with your psoas muscle on the right side, but that's not the case on the left side. And so for the most part, when you think about this, every time you take a step with your right leg, every time you bring your right leg forward at the hip, your diaphragm contracts as well as that psoas muscle.
So if I'm
And
sitting here with my
conversely,
right leg crossed over my left, that's contracting my right diaphragm?
if you're contracting that muscle that you use to lift your leg up, yes.
Oh, when I lift the leg. Okay. Got
Now
it.
we're not talking a lot of fibers being incorporated here, but we are talking about the muscle working to some extent.
I see.
And conversely, every time you take a breath in and your right diaphragm moves, that hip muscle also contracts just a little bit.
Because
Okay?
that's that old hip bone's connected to the diaphragm bone.
Absolutely. And see, this is an asymmetry that we have,
I see.
that all of us have, and this can be contributed to many, many, many different problems. Not just problems that you might even see in a physical therapy clinic for musculoskeletal issues, because you're in this pattern, and you have a tendency to then be not symmetrical, and it can give you all kinds of other things. Of course, our musculoskeletal system affects just about, in fact, it does affect every other system we have. We have a circulatory system, we have a digestive system, we have a nervous system, we have a
The endocrine
system.
Yeah.
The endocrine system, it affects everything.
Yeah.
Nervous system, oh my gosh, yes. If you're walking around in some form of little bit of tension, for example, and you don't know you have it, it can contribute to all kinds of things. It can give you many, many different musculoskeletal issues. You can feel this in your neck. You can feel it in your abdominals. You can feel it all kinds of different places. And as we're in this specific pattern, the certain postures and positions because of this that we're probably not even aware of course, it can contribute to just about every other musculoskeletal problem that we can have.
And so you were talking about even if many of us are diagnosed with scoliosis or one leg is shorter than the other, which then it throws off all kinds of things in our body. Because I'll know when I go to see my chiropractor or my massage therapist, they'll kind of pull on my legs. And when they first start, one leg is a little shorter than the other. And after they've finished working on me, they'll pull it and they'll notice that I'm actually equidistant now. So that's part of what they're doing in the mechanics or the work that they're doing is to help get me more in alignment, more balance. Is that right?
Right. Well, of course, there can always be things that you do, like working out in your garden and playing with your bushes and finding ticks, that can give you specific problems, but it's still all based on a posture or a position that you're doing that contributes to this. Right. If we can have traumas, we can fall out of a treehouse or something when we're young, or fall off of our bicycle, and anything like that can kind of get us messed up. But in the clinic early on, I realized that I was seeing the same specific problems over and over and over again. And I was seeing the same specific problems with people that would always recur. They always had a problem here, or they always had a problem there. They didn't have, global problems. You understand what I'm saying there?
Right.
And so I knew that there was something amiss there. And so that's what I did, is I discovered that this is what the major thing was through the teachings of PRI.
And so you were telling me that people can actually kind of feel that the tension in one side versus the other by placing your fingers under your rib cage. Is that right?
Oh yeah. You want to do an experiment? Let's just.
Yeah.
Can we have some fun with you and your listeners?
Yes.
even
Everybody listen.
Art.
Art, you can join in with us too. He hides. Right. He doesn't want to be on camera, but he's a valuable part of this team. So anyway, we're listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann at WSMN 1590, and I'm speaking with Brian Hill, who is a physical therapy specialist, and so I'm supposed to stick my fingers under my right rib cage. Is that right?
Well, let's have your listeners, not the ones perhaps that are driving, but if you can just maybe move. Yeah, maybe just move forward in your chair, so you're sitting kind of away from the back of the chair. If you have, make sure your feet are flat on the floor.
Got it.
And let's just an experiment. Maybe cross your arms over your chest, put your hands flat on your shoulders or whatever, and just keeping your pelvis kind of firm there on the chair. Rotate your body one way or the other. Rotate it, say, to the left.
Okay. And
get an idea how hard or how easy that might be, how far you go.
Yeah.
And then rotate back around to the right. And see if you do the same thing. See if it's symmetrical. See if it's similar to the way you went the first way. And
it doesn't count if your chair swivels either.
No, don't swivel your chair.
Okay, got it.
Try to keep your pelvis fixed and just rotate your trunk on top of a fixed pelvis. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Then, okay, so you get an idea how far that goes each way.
Yep.
Okay. And then you note if it's symmetrical, if it goes the same way. And then what you do on the right side, just as an experiment, we're going to see if we can do something here. Take your fingertips underneath your lower right rib cage, right in the middle of the right half of your rib cage on the right, and kind of don't push your fingers straight in, but kind of come up and underneath the rib cage, like you're coming back up towards your head.
Okay.
And see if you can feel a little rock there. See if you can find some discomfort there.
Yep, it's a little tender.
Okay.
There's a tender spot.
Little tender spot right
Yeah.
there. Now try it on the left side and see if that's symmetrical. Okay,
I
on the
don't
left
really
side.
find as much of a tender spot on the left. A little bit, but not so much.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're pushing on the right side there is your right diaphragm, which is in spasm, which is contracted, which is domed up, restricting the amount of air that you're getting in your right lung. Okay, and that's because it's overworked, because it's continuous with the fibers of your right psoas muscle.
Okay.
Your right hip flexor muscle. Okay, so let's do a little thing. Let's see if we can get that to relax. How's that?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so as you're sitting there, what we're going to do is we're just going to do a breathing exercise as you're sitting there. Now, this is going to be an interesting breathing exercise because I want you to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and I want you to keep your mouth open the whole time. So let me walk you through this very, very briefly here, really quick. So you're going to breathe in through your nose as deeply as you can, and then you're going to blow that air out through your mouth, and you want to take a good long 6 or 7 or 8 second exhalation until you can feel your abdominal muscles work.
So basically, I'm using my tongue to block my esophageal or opening in the back of my throat as I'm breathing in.
Yes, with your mouth open. You breathe in. So you put the back of your tongue up to close off your epiglottis as you breathe in through your nose. And then you move your tongue out of the way so you can exhale through your mouth.
It takes a lot. You got to think about this.
Yeah. But we can all breathe in through our nose with our mouth open. We just don't ever think about doing it before we do it.
Exactly.
Okay, exactly. Okay, so then again, with all that air all the way out, you're feeling your abdominals kick in just a little bit. Again, with your tongue up on the roof of your mouth in the back, close off your epiglottis, then you take another big breath in through your nose. And get all the air in as far as you can, and don't hold it in very long. Exhale it out through your mouth, all the way out, as far as you can get it out. Okay?
Yeah.
Feel your abdominals kick in, and then try it again. Tongue in the roof of your mouth, breathe in through your nose. And then exhale that air all the way out, blowing it all the way out. Feel your abdominals kick in. Let's do it one more time. Tongue in the roof of your mouth in the back, breathe in through your nose. All the way in, and then let it go all the way out. Take a good 6 seconds or so, 6, 7, 8 seconds. Blow that air all the way out. Feel your abdominals kick in. Good.
Yeah.
And then just relax. Just breathe normal. Breathe normal.
Yeah.
And then just for grins, sitting there at the edge of your chair, feet flat on the floor, fold your arms over your chest again, and then rotate back to the left and right again, and see if that's any different.
It seems like I can rotate more to the left than I could before. Is that same thing with art? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Okay, and then all you did was breathing here. Now take your fingertips underneath your rib cage again and push right up where it was tender, where you may have found that tender spot before, and see if it's just as bad or if it's any better.
It seems to be less tender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. And now I notice that, I tell people to do belly, put their hand on their belly and take a breath into their belly. But what I'm really intending for them to do is to take a breath down the back of their back, the diaphragm into the back lower part of their lungs.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, we breathe weird. We breathe wrongly.
Yeah, a lot of people are belly breathers, and I do that a lot in my clinic too. There are people that do Pilates and yoga and all that stuff, and this is the way they're taught: is to take a big breath in through their belly. You really get their belly to expand out when they inhale. And I would just submit to you that your belly should not expand really very much like that when you take a breath in, simply because anatomically we don't have any lungs down below our diaphragm.
This is true. We've got no lungs in our belly.
Right.
But many of us
you
have been taught to take a breath in and we suck our belly in, which then limits the amount of lung capacity we have because we'll suck our belly in as we take a breath. This is what I see a lot of people do. And what we really need to do is relax the belly.
Well, yeah, we need
as
to,
you
we need to
allow
have
your
synchronous,
lungs. Yes.
synchronous breathing. Your rib cage and your belly should expand both at the same time for you to do things correctly.
This is true.
Right.
Yeah.
And then see when you exhale, when you exhale, your abdominal muscle should kick in, and when you get all that air out and your stomach is sucked in a little bit, try to keep it sucked in a little bit, and then take another breath in with your stomach sucked in. That is a perfectly great way to try to get your right diaphragm to relax.
Now say that again. If I
Okay.
suck my belly in and
When you exhale, your
Yeah.
stomach should contract a little bit as you
Yeah.
exhale all the way out. And then try to keep your stomach sucked in. Try to keep your belly button sucked back towards your spine.
right after you've exhaled,
And
pull your belly
After
in.
you've exhaled. And
Yeah.
then take a big breath in and get an idea about just how much your rib cage is expanding. Mm-hmm. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
That is amazing. So do you
Yeah.
have people do this? How often do you encourage people to do this, this type
Well,
of
I
breathing?
encourage people to do that. Well, I kind of make things a little bit more complicated in the clinic because I add components and
Yeah.
and balloons, and those kinds of things. But you try to do it. You try to do it as often as you can. Breathing is an amazing thing. I mean, after all, air was the first nourishment that we received after we were born. Mm-hmm. And so, and we take it for granted that we can breathe until you have a problem. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people go around with a restriction in their breathing, of course, like I had, and I didn't even realize it. Mm-hmm. So,
and that's what happens when people are under stress. They tend to breathe with that middle section. They're only breathing with one lobe of each lung. And so then this is where people have these panic attacks or these anxiety attacks because they're not really fully using the full breadth and capacity of the lung. They're not getting enough oxygen in their body. So when you use these types of breathing exercises, you actually breathe with the full lung capacity and you're getting more oxygen into your body. The other thing that I tell, especially when I'm working with smokers, who say, "Well, I have a cigarette to relax me," but the fact of the matter is, nicotine is a stimulant. So what's really relaxing them is the breath that they're breathing as they're inhaling. So because the vagus nerve also lives along the diaphragm. So when you take those nice, deep, gentle breaths in, you're stimulating the vagus nerve, or you're activating this vagus nerve, which releases endorphins, which cause you to relax. So it's an interesting tie-in with the breathing.
Right. Anatomically, we have more blood supply to our lower lungs than we do on our upper lungs. So you always want to get a deep breath if you can. We're amazing human beings. We've adapted to being on this planet over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Have you ever noticed that when you have some form of exertion, you breathe deeply?
Yes.
Yes, you're trying to get that air into the bottom of your lungs. We're hardwired that way. And because we have to be efficient pumps. We're efficient pumps. We pump air in and out. Metabolically, we have all kinds of things going on, but we're just big pumps. And you have to get that air moving in and out, and really have to be symmetrical, or you're going to end up with problems. And I find that it's really, really, the problems people have are usually, it's wonderful for my job security. And it's all based on, to some extent, as I said earlier, it's all based on an overactive right diaphragm.
Interesting. I want our listeners to realize that they're listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann, and I am speaking with Brian Hill, who is a specialist in physical therapy and special types of physical therapy. So he's talking to us about how our breathing affects our body mechanics because the right side and the left side inside are not symmetrical. So if we breathe and we can make the best use of our lung capacity, then we can create more symmetry, more balance within our, on our inside, which then affects the outside. Did I get that right, Mr. Brian?
That's exactly right. And there's all kinds of other things that are involved with that too. For example, breathing right, moving your rib cage the way your rib cage is intended to move will also help relax your neck. your upper back, your shoulder blades. It can cause you to have fewer headaches. If you're having a little bit of an emotional issue or an anxiety issue or a little stress issue, take some big, deep breaths, because breathing, moving your right diaphragm, getting your diaphragm to be more symmetrical in motion, will take you right out of your autonomic nervous system. It'll take you right out of your fight or flight, take you right out of the sympathetic system and get you to relax.
Interesting.
Into your parasympathetic system. And your listeners can do that again, that same technique that we just did, and after they take 4 or 5 breaths, then ask themselves, wow, do I feel calmer after doing that?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when we get into that fight or flight, we stop breathing. We hold our breath. And what we have to do is the opposite. Take in that breath and relax. At the same time, we can tell ourselves, relax, and the body will respond. But that's that whole body-mind connection. Yeah. Right.
Another thing I like to tell folks to do is to do that breathing exercise sitting on a step. Like the top step or bottom step, and putting your feet on the next step down, or the floor if you're on the bottom step at home. And bring your heels back toward that riser, so your heels are really close to your bottom and your knees will be up in the air. Okay, and do that breathing exercise in that position, because your thighs pressed up against your lower lower abdomen will help you to, keep your stomach in, especially if you're a belly breather, and you'll get more benefit from doing that breathing exercise.
Oh, that's interesting. Is this where you were talking about rounding your back like a scaredy Halloween cat?
Yes, you always have to round your back.
Okay.
Always have to round your back.
So, in other words, instead of arching your back, you want to round the back.
You want to do a teenage slump. I mean, if we were ever teenagers, we all know how to slouch.
Oh,
so that's what you want to do. You want to round your back in that direction.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a good stretch for that shoulder too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You do all kinds of things. And then I made a mention earlier, too, of balloons. I just want to say that doing a balloon will really help emphasize using your lower abdominal muscles and getting air in and out and getting that right diaphragm to relax a little bit.
Now, what do you mean by doing a balloon? I have sometimes had trouble blowing up a balloon.
Right. It's amazing how many people I see that cannot blow a balloon up.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling. It's different. Yeah.
Right. It's because the balloon, as you put that second puff of air in, with the resistance of the balloon, what you're doing is you're really working on a lot of different structures. You're doing so much stuff to work your abdominal muscles, work your diaphragm as you're breathing in and out. And you're also relaxing neck muscles. You're relaxing your upper chest wall, your upper thorax. You're doing so many things when you blow a balloon up, especially when you do it in that same technique where you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth and keep the airway of the balloon open as you breathe in through your nose. Keep the seal of the balloon around the neck of the balloon, your lips around the neck of the balloon. And then as you exhale, keep that airway open, breathing in through your nose with the tongue on the roof of your mouth, then moving your tongue and blowing into the balloon and putting a few puffs of air into a balloon. It's amazing for even compounding that whole breathing sequence that we did.
So when this is a good exercise, if somebody's going to have a party, that might be why it's nice to have balloons, so that'll help to alleviate the stress of whoever's planning the party, right?
That's right.
Okay, then. We can do that.
Right.
Yeah, or have some balloons around your house and, every now and again blow up a balloon. That'll tell people, hey, I've been stressed.
Yes.
Leave me alone.
Right.
Excellent. So you were also talking about how this is all interconnected. What kind of symptoms will people have when they're out of balance with the diaphragm? The right diaphragm is not working. The psoas muscle is contracted, or it's not working. So how do they manifest with symptomatology for you?
Well, they come in with all kinds of different diagnoses. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. They keep having a problem with the shoulder, or a problem with their sacroiliac joint, or a low back, or a hip, or a knee. Everything can be traced back to having a problem with your diaphragm. Now, you're going to have other things overlaying on top of that you'll need to work through. Mm-hmm. Nobody just comes in and says, I got a problem here, and then they skip out, completely fixed up. So, everybody is complicated. We're pretty complex, human beings. So, every time somebody comes in, somebody can come in with tennis elbow, okay, and you can work on that and get that to feeling any better, but you better restore the mechanics of your shoulder and your shoulder blade and that whole half of your thorax and on those kinds of things for that to actually get better. Sometimes people come in when they have a problem right here, and I never even touch the problem. We just go and do something else, and amazingly, the original problem that someone came in for just disappears. It just goes away because it was a compensation to something else that they had going on.
Well,
a lot of times you can...
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, a lot of times people can come in with a problem here. Just because it hurts here, that doesn't mean that's where the problem is. Pain is a liar. Just because it hurts one place doesn't mean that's where your problem is. It could be referred or coming from someplace else. It could be a musculoskeletal asymmetry or a movement pattern problem.
Or yes, it could be a repetitive pattern that we do all the time. I know that I have been told, and we discussed this too, about simple activities like loading the dishwasher. Tell us your story about the lady that came in with the elder lady that came in about loading the dishwasher.
Yes. Well, I like to have fun with folks that come in to see me. And so a lady had come in to see me, and she was having problems with her low back and her hip, and she was having problems with her leg and that kind of thing. And so I asked her, what kind of motions that we needed to do, what kind of motion that she did that really reproduced her symptoms. And so she said, it's every time I bend forward and kind of move off to the right a little bit. So she's bending forward, side bending right, rotating right. And I said, well, what kind of activity is it that you're doing every day that's causing that? How did you know you're having this problem? And she took a few minutes before she finally figured out she did that exact same motion when she loaded her dishwasher. And I said, oh, I see. And so what we need to do to get this fixed is we need to have your husband start loading and unloading the dishwasher. And she says, oh, no, that's not going to happen. I said, okay, all right. So then I said, okay, so how long have you been living in this house? And she says, I've been living in this house for like 50 some odd years ever since she was married. I said, okay, so maybe it's time now that what we do is we redesign the kitchen and we move the dishwasher from this side of the sink to over here to this side of the sink. And she says, oh, that's not going to happen. I said, so then maybe if we can't move your world, maybe what we'll have to do is we'll have to move you. And then I just asked her to just, as she has something in her hands to bend down and put into the dishwasher, just simply move her feet, take a little half step backwards, shuffle her feet off to the side so she can bend forward.
Right.
Symmetrically. Right.
And that's what I was told, that the aggravation is from the twisting and bending, that we should be more like move robotically, step to the side and then bend forward. For dishwashers, for loading wash machines, anything like that, we need to bend forward and not twist and bend.
Well, see, certainly we need to be able to bend forward and side bend and rotate, and we need to do it both ways. We all tend to be in certain patterns of behavior. For example, if you ever drive a car, when you get in and out of the car, don't you put all your weight on your left leg getting in behind the wheel? You're doing all kinds of funky things to yourself musculoskeletally. Okay, people always are in patterns. We always do things in the same fashion. You put this.
You typically put one sock on before the other.
Right.
You typically put one leg in the pants before the other. Yeah, we definitely have patterns. It's just there's this whole pattern of, if you were to cross your hands, most people will end up with one thumb over the other. And if you try and cross the hands the other way, it feels weird. It feels really weird. It feels wrong. Exactly. It just feels wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and when we think about everything that we do is in a certain pattern because that's what we're used to. We always sleep on one side or the other. We sleep on the side because the bedroom door is over that way, or that other person's over there on that side, or, whatever. We always load a dishwasher a certain way, take clothing out of the washing machine and bend for the dryer a certain way. And, everything is in a pattern. And it's okay to be in these patterns. It's okay to be able to do something one specific way. But you have to be able to get out of it and do the exact same activity the opposite way. Right. You have to maintain symmetry.
When I was shoveling the mulch, I was, typically I shovel, I'm right-handed, so I'm shoveling this way. And then I realized that's going to cause me some aggravation, so I had to switch and shovel left-handed, which was a little bit more awkward, but I felt like at least I should give this arm a break and work this one.
That's exactly right. That's a wonderful thing to do. Shake things up a little bit and try to do something the opposite way. It's really, really great for maintaining symmetry. The worst things that you can do around the house are push a vacuum cleaner because you're bending forward, you're side bending and rotating, usually to the same side.
So you should get your husband to do the vacuuming.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Oh,
right.
Art says get a robot.
Or get yourself a robot.
You get a robot.
A Roomba.
Too. Yeah, okay. But the same action you do if you're moving a shovel. The same action you're doing when you're pulling a leaf rake. You're bending forward, side bending, and rotating, you see. And it's okay to do those things, but again, you have to be able to get out of that activity and be able to do it the opposite way.
So that's what's going to
doing
help
it with
us.
the opposite way is going to really help your brain because you're going to be challenging yourself to learn a new technique, a new position, a new way of doing things.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Huh. Well, all kinds of wonderful things. And then also, I know that a lot of people encourage stretching after we've been doing something and working in the garden. And what was your take on, what should we do after we've been doing all of this work in the gardens and work outside and doing these things that we're not used to doing? And then, okay, now we're going to be challenging our body and our mind by thinking about doing them with the opposite hand to keep in balance. And then what do we do?
Well, what you do, first of all, it's important to know that stretching is not a cure-all for everything. Yes, you're going to have a tight muscle here, a tight muscle there, and you want to maintain symmetry through those muscles. But really, for the most part, because of the pattern that you very well might be in, the best thing that you could do probably would be just to take a big breath in and out and just get your breathing to calm down and get your right diaphragm to relax. Mm-hmm. Go for a gentle walk. Don't really work. I go to the gym. I see people that are stretching their hamstrings out by putting their foot way up on that bar, and leaning forward, and their leg is not directly in front of them; it's off to the side, and they're doing all things asymmetrically with a stretch. And so, so you can really be compounding a problem that you might have by doing a lot of stretching. The idea here is to keep in mind that things should always be symmetrical. We're always working to symmetry. That's the key. You're going to be in a pattern. You're going to have certain, I say patterns, postures, positions. You're always going to be in a certain pattern. And it's okay to be really kind of one way, but you have to be able to go the other way.
Yeah, you've got to be. In other words, you're engaging your mind, because oftentimes when we're doing this stuff with the raking or working, it's mindless. We're not paying attention. But if you were to try to, I can hammer a nail in with my little mini baby hammer. I'm pretty good with that with my right hand. But if I were to try and hit it with my left hand, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna smash my thumb. So trying to switch hands is an important exercise to get that right brain, left brain moving too.
Right, yes. We're really working with your central nervous system, with your nervous system in general, to learn to do things, in a different way. It keeps everything keeps everything moving, keeps everything flowing. That you can do things, equally both ways. Really good for your brain, keeps you alert.
Yes.
It's good for brain stuff, yes.
Well, I also have, the whole concept of taking a breath in also is something that you can do just to wake up. If all of a sudden you're in the middle of the day and you're getting that brain fog, instead of reaching for a cup of coffee, it's going to keep you up all night. Well, for some people. Take some breaths, because then that rejuvenates you. That's a wonderful way to rejuvenate and to get your mind thinking about something else. And I want the listeners to know that you are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann. This is WSMN 1590, and we're speaking with Brian Hill. Every week we have a different guest who is inspiring us with all kinds of different fascinating things that they do. So, Brian, what do you do to stay inspired? What is it specifically? You're helping other people with their physical body, but you also do some other interesting things too. You are a hypnotist, and so I want to know about how you tie in the hypnosis work with your physical therapy, and I also want to know what you do to keep inspired.
Well, let's see. What do I do to keep inspired? Well, I mean, besides you, of course, Lois. I can say that, but I really wouldn't want anybody to know that because they might think that I'm just a kind of a suck up or something. But I would say that I'm inspired by a lot of different things. Everybody I meet inspires me to some point or another, because I like to see the positive in everything. I really strive to seeing the positive, and so I'm inspired by what somebody does here, what somebody does there to keep me going. You mentioned that, yes, I'm a hypnotist, and it's amazing how the mind can play with all of the stuff that we talked about with our physical bodies. And so just having somebody make a suggestion here or a suggestion there just to get your mind going. And it's always a positive suggestion, but it's always done with, a lot of times with humor with me in my clinic. But, it's just a matter of just keeping somebody going, mentally going so they can get their physical bodies going. And that's really the best key for all of it.
So do you have clients that come to you for physical therapy, and as you're working with them, you see that there's a need for a dovetail in with hypnosis? Like if somebody is really struggling with sadness or stress, that you would be able to kind of work the two together?
Well, yes. They come in and they see I've got business cards up there for hypnosis as well, and so they know that I do hypnosis. And I don't do the shameless self-promotion thing very well. And so usually I let them bring it up. Yes, they want to do a little hypnosis for weight loss, or they have an issue of some kind or another going on. And so I let them bring it up. I don't really, push doing hypnosis, although there have been times when somebody has mentioned, oh, yeah, I had this near-death experience, and I was really curious about that. And I say, wow, we can figure out what's going on with that if you want to do some hypnosis with that or something. But for the most part, I usually let folks bring up the idea. But everybody has some form of an issue to some extent or another. Whether we're aware of it or not. There could be an emotional component to somebody's injury while they're seeing me. There could be so many different things. And so usually things just tend to work out. The ones that I'm supposed to work with tend to just come and, we work with, and the ones that don't. So that's kind of how I look at all that.
That's that spiritual aspect of it. Things are meant to be. And I know that there is a saying that I've heard you say time and again, especially when there's a challenging situation, only good will come of this. That's right. Yeah. Only good will come of this. Yes, I learned that phrase from my friend Corey. So again, staying positive is always a good thing to be. Only good will come of it. So that's a good thing to think about right now with everybody that's dealing with. We're in a state of change. Our normal is gone. It's gone. We are all in a state of change right now. And as we are in change, what we can say to ourselves when we start to getting into that fear mode is only good will come of this. There's going to be a silver lining. I don't know what it is right now, but only good will come of this. There's going to be something positive. So if we shift our energy, our vibrational frequency, as it were, to a higher, wiser, hopeful level instead of that at low level energy of fear, if we shift up to a hopeful level, then we will be able to see it when it comes. If we stay stuck in the doldrums of fear, we won't see the good that's going to come of this. But if we move into a hopeful posture, position, thought process, then it will come. There will be something, right? That's right. Another one of the phrases that I like is to think that you always manifest what you think. So if you walk around with a negative attitude, you're going to have a lot of negativity around you. If you walk around with a positive attitude, manifesting, thinking positive things, that's what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, right, and it's very, very true, and that's where I kind of like to try to be. And I'm always positive with folks I see, no matter what I'm seeing them for, and just planting that seed of always thinking positively. Exactly. And I know that you and I met some years ago, and you've done some of the spiritual hypnosis work with me, training with me, and you are an amazingly spiritually connected, and you've been a very steadfast member of what I call our Team Hope, the people who have been helping to promote and to encourage the messages in the Chronicles of Hope. So, Brian, I'd love it if you'd share your insight, because you have been on this journey with me for a couple of years now. What are your thoughts or insights about the messages that we've received through the Chronicles of Hope? Well, that's a great question. Do I have any thoughts to share? Well,
first and foremost, it's probably been a pretty eye-opening experience for me personally, and in other ways too. I still marvel that you kind of asked me along. I'm honored and humbled to be a part of it. But I think that your book, Chronicles of Hope, the Unquietus, and the new book that you've been working on, you've had The Collective, I think is what it's called.
Yes.
You've given me an opportunity to preview that you've been working on so diligently, that new one.
Yes.
This past few months. I think it should be read and embraced by everybody. That's just my humble opinion there. Of course, it's my hope that all of the learnings and teachings from that divine universal wisdom that came through was the source of all those books, of course, and that knowledge from that book will serve just to raise all of our collective consciousnesses, to help all of us people on civilization, and especially this gorgeous blue-green planet that we live on, that we can perambulate around symmetrically and pick up ticks in. Yeah.
And then go get magnetized.
Then go get magnetized.
To get rebalanced, realigned, because that's what they're doing, is they're realigning. But so how do you feel? I mean, I don't want to say I'm biased. I was the receiver of these messages, and I am passionate about delivering the messages. How do you feel that they will contribute to humanity? What do you think that is so different or so unique about the messages that have come through in this series of books?
Well, that's my hope, is that these books are going to be well received. Just the source of the material from the books is just an unbelievable thing when you consider that these were all sources from the universe, or some spiritual source. And anytime you get a spiritual source that can kind of come forward and give a message, I think we all need to kind of just sit up and take heed from that. And so my hope, of course, is that they're going to be well received, because the idea here is that the whole purpose of this is to come along and raise our consciousness. Everybody be positive. We need to not be so negative, not live in anger and fear and greed and all of those negative emotions and negative feelings and things that we're all bombarded with every day. And the idea here is to really work on improving all that stuff, to raise the vibration of the planet. I know that sounds pretty daunting, but if you just can convince one other person to do it, and if everybody convinces another, it won't take any time at all before that'll go all around the planet to work on that. But it's just an amazing method for which all this happens. So I'm very hopeful that this is going to really work, and it's going to take effect, and we'll see some of the results of that very, very soon.
I know we've seen already some results of the positive through this pandemic, where people are rethinking and reevaluating their lives, and they're making new choices. And Gaia herself is healing. There's a lot of information about our Mother Earth, Gaia, the spirit of the earth, and how we need to do our part to help her to heal. And so this is part of what the message in the book as well, that we collectively are responsible, we collectively are interconnected, and as we collectively shift our energy to be more positive, we are able to help. We just lost a connection somewhere. But anyway, we're able to shift our energy to be more positive, and then with the ultimate hope of elevating the consciousness of humanity so that we can do the best for everyone. Thank you so much, Brian.
That's exactly right.
And thank you, listeners. And I just want to invite you to come and listen with me next week when I shine the light on yet another wonderful person. You are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Hermann, and Brian Hill has been with me today. And I hope that you've been inspired by some of his messages, and that you have a wonderful week full of inspiration. So meanwhile, look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day. Take good care.